What is going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. In today's video, we're going to give you our season preview for the Washington Commanders. All that and much more coming your way right now! All right, before we get into today's video, be sure to hit that subscribe button and like the video as it will help us out tremendously. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's video. All right, Nick, with the 2022 NFL season fast approaching, we have another season preview to get to. Today, we're going to be talking about the Washington Commanders, their inaugural season as the Commanders. Maybe next year they'll be under a different name. Who the hell knows at this point, right? But nonetheless, the Commanders will be taking the field, and some of those players that we saw last year are no longer with the team. They brought some new faces in, and I want to start off, obviously, with the head of this team, Carson Wentz, under center, the new quarterback for this team. Working with Ron Rivera in this offense is going to be one hell of a challenge for not only Carson Wentz, but this entire offense as a whole. We saw Carson Wentz really fall apart toward the end of the season last year and missing the playoffs just narrowly after a loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But this team is also much better than they were a year ago. When you take a look at some of the other additions that they had in Jahan Dotson, the big speedy receiver out of Penn State, Phidarian Mathis, the big-time defensive tackle to go along with Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, and then you can't forget about Andrew Norwell and Trai Turner on the offensive line. Big additions for this team. As for some losses, though, taking a look at some of the players that will no longer be with this team, you look at Brendon Scherff, you look at Landon Collins, you look at Eric Flowers. Some of these guys, they were cut. Some of these guys just were chosen not to be re-signed. Brendon Scherff went on to the Jaguars because he got a bag in free agency. Now the time is for the Commanders to really put this team together. Nick, taking a look at all of the additions, all of the subtractions, where this team is right now, where do you see the Commanders going in the first 6 games?
Well, when we take a look at the first 6 games of the season, it's not looking so pretty. The Washington Commanders are going to go 1-5 in their first 6 games and starting the year on a 5-game losing streak. In the middle of this losing streak, however, we will see the game against the Philadelphia Eagles in which Carson Wentz makes an attempt to try and get revenge over the team that once drafted him. But when you look at these two rosters compared to each other, the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely swallow them whole. There is nothing that this Washington Commanders team offers that is going to be able to keep up with the nasty squad that has been built in Philly. They are going to be a force to be reckoned with this season, and I just don't think Carson will get that revenge that he's looking for. But then looking at week 6, they take on the Bears in Chicago, a team that has suffered a lot of losses and not a lot of gains, similar to the Commanders, but the Commanders have a much better team on paper, a much better team on the field, and Ron Rivera is definitely the better head coach out of both teams. This is going to be a very big game for the Commanders to prove that they can still compete, that they are still a team that has one of the best defenses in the NFL. And when you look at that offensive line for Chicago, you know that they're going to be hitting home constantly. So it should be a great game for the Commanders in week 6.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the losses for the Bears, and another loss for the Bears just recently happening, the acquisition of N'Keal Harry. So big time issue for the Bears, but nonetheless, the Commanders will be able to come out on top in that one. Heading into the next 6 games, though, it doesn't get much better as we see yet another losing streak, this time only 4 games, and we see some big names in here. The Eagles again, the Packers, the Vikings, 2 teams that are really atop the NFC, and then that week 8 visit to the Colts. Carson Wentz taking on his former team. This defense is licking their chops to get one crack at Carson Wentz. For his part in them missing the playoffs last season, they want to really instill their will on Carson Wentz in this offense. They want to make it known that they are so much better off with Matt Ryan, who's about to turn to dust, and they are ready to make the playoffs. This will be a statement game for the Colts and not so much for Carson Wentz. But taking a look at weeks 11 and 12, we start to see some momentum gaining. The Houston Texans and the Atlanta Falcons falling to the wrath of the Washington Commanders. And this week 11 Texans game should be an interesting one because this defense of the Washington Commanders has everything in their power to stop the offense of the Texans. But it is up to Carson Wentz to getting past this Texans defense. I think he's going to be able to get it done. Scary Terry and company are going to be no match for what the Houston Texans trot out onto that football field, and we see a 3-9 record through the first 12 games of this season.
Well, when we take a look at the last 6 weeks of the season, we see things starting to turn around for the Washington Commanders as they go 3-2 with a bye week mixed in there to end the year 6-11 on the season. And although 3-2 isn't really anything to write home about, it is a big improvement over where they started. Going 1-5 to then 3-2 in your last 6 weeks, that is a great jump. And as you look at the schedule, they went 5 for 7 in their last 8 weeks. This team is showing that they are coming together in the latter half of the season, and they will be a team that will get better going into the following year. But this just isn't it. And as we take a look at these last few games, we see in week 13, they take on the New York Giants, a team that did not really stand a chance against any team in the NFL last year. But with the big additions of Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal, they're going to be very tough for the Commanders to stop, and I think they're going to be a big reason why the Giants get a victory in their first meeting. But then going into the end of the season, we see 2 big games at the end of the year. None bigger, though, in Week 18 when the Commanders get to take on their rival in the Dallas Cowboys, a team that they normally do not stand a chance against. But in Week 18, the Commanders are playing for pride. They are looking to end the year strong, and the Cowboys will be vying for a playoff spot, and this will be a must win. But I believe the Commanders will have the strength to get past them, and I think that their pass attack is going to be strong at this point with Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin going up against that Cowboys secondary. That's going to be the big strength in this matchup. Overall, 6-11 on the season doesn't look that great, but when you look at it a little bit closer, the Commanders are on the right track.
Absolutely. 6-11 is not where the Commanders were hoping to be, especially with the acquisitions that they made this offseason. But these are building blocks. This is not an overnight success. And when you take a look at what teams like the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys currently look like, this Commanders team is building their foundation. They have the defense to compete in every single one of these games. The problem is their offense and just the lack of continuity that they've been able to have, especially along that offensive line. But now with the receiving weapons, you have Scary Terry, you have Jahan Dotson. It might take a while for Dotson to get up to NFL readiness, Carson Wentz learning this offense, and really just being in his third city in the last 3 years. This is not going to be something that just happens overnight for this team. So for those of you who are hoping that the Commanders would come out and just be world beaters, it's just not going to happen. But stick with us and see where the Commanders finish their season and taking a look at where they'll be next year. All right, well, that's going to be all for now. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.